What's up guys, today we're reacting to a video called YouTubers Get Sued for $1 billion. And this is by a guy named CoffeeZilla, who was a huge part of the downfall of the FTX scandal, which was a huge crypto platform that basically scammed millions of people throughout the world. And they were embraced by people like Tom Brady, embraced by a whole bunch of YouTubers, and this video is basically about how these YouTubers that promoted this are getting sued for $1 billion. One of which is Meet Kevin, who we've actually spent a day with, met, and know pretty well. So pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, so I don't know much about cryptocurrency. I definitely don't know anything about
FTX.
FTX, but yeah, let's see, $1 billion. That's a lot of money.
All right, let's see it.
The influencers who promoted FTX are now being sued for over $1 billion in damages, and I want to talk about it. We're not only speaking to a lawyer, but even one of the people getting sued. Meet Kevin, Graham Stephan, Andre Jick, Minority Mindset, Brian Jung, Financial Education Jeremy, Tom Nash, and BitBoy Crypto are all defendants in this lawsuit. But
do you know much about why they were promoting it? Because they were getting paid to promote it?
Yeah.
Did they know much about it when they promoted it?
Yeah, so what I've heard, they're all paid sponsorships. They have every video has a paid sponsorship. They're paid a certain amount of money. But FTX was one of the ones that was the most relevant to the creator. These are all finance creators. So they were like, oh, it's a finance platform. Makes sense with my niche. It's super trustworthy because they had a Super Bowl commercial with Tom Brady. What company could have something that
why is Tom
big?
Brady not getting sued?
I think he's getting a lot of backlash. Even people like Kevin O'Leary. Anybody that's affiliated with FTX is getting a lot of backlash. I'm not sure if they're getting financial stuff, but for sure backlash.
But before we get into it, I have to do something I never thought I would do on this channel. I have to defend a certain person on that list. A guy I have been very critical of on this show. I'm talking about BitBoy Crypto. I know, I can't believe it either. What many people don't know is that he turned against them. And get this, months before the collapse, he started warning people about FTX.
We're going to be crossing out FTT and Solana. These are going to be going out of the portfolios. These coins are dead to me. Sam Bankman-Fried, you're dead to me. Brett Harrison, you are dead to me. FTX, you are dead to me. You are despicable, and I'm disgusted by you in every way, shape, or form.
So go ahead and pause.
Everybody's going to be.
So for a little bit of context, I don't know this guy well, but that Mad Money guy. He was a guy that was a financial advisor on CNN, but he was a super charismatic type of person that would just say the most controversial shit and was wrong most of the time, but made a couple good calls. Alex Jones is similar with conspiracy theories, where he says the craziest shit. He's like that, where he's mostly wrong. So when he's right, it's impressive because it's
well, I mean, I guess if you say enough crazy shit, some of it's gonna be right.
Be on that track.
Oh my gosh, he said that way back in September. He said he's disgusted by Sam Bankman-Fried. This is BitBoy Crypto, guys. He's the Jim Cramer of crypto, and yet somehow he made one of the greatest blind call-outs of all time. And it's so remarkable that I actually want to show you yet another clip of him doing this because I simply couldn't believe it when I saw it.
They're playing games with people's lives, and that's not right. Time to expose FTX and SBF for what they really are.
What can I say? That video is a month.
Why did he call him out? What did he see? Did you know what he saw that made him
I'm
oh,
curious.
this is a scam?
I wonder.
If he saw something, would other people have seen it, or he's just kind of guessing and just got lucky or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
Before FTX collapsed. And to be clear, I am not claiming that BitBoy is some oracle. I think it was luck, but understand that he's one of the most widely ridiculed crypto influencers. Everyone has dumped on this guy for years for bad calls. But here we are watching him get FTX, the biggest con, more correct than even the most beloved financial influencers. So it just doesn't make sense for him to be in this lawsuit. And besides, you're not supposed to sue BitBoy Crypto anyways. He sues you when you make fun of him. All right, sorry, I'm trying to defend him here, but I'm not used to this strange turn of events where the villain has become the hero. But either way, with that out of the way, I want to talk about the rest of this lawsuit. Basically, the rest of these influencers are accused of promoting FTX and getting paid for it. It also accuses them of not conducting adequate, if any, due diligence.
So it looks like, I mean, if you are sponsoring, if you're going to sponsor certain companies, that maybe you could be held liable but only if you didn't do enough due diligence. So if you do enough due diligence and you could say, look, I did enough and it looked good at the time, you're probably, so the lawsuit is actually saying that they didn't do any due diligence. They just did it for the money and had no idea about these companies. And they, because of the no due diligence, cause a lot of people to lose a lot of their money.
Yeah, but the one thing that I always like get scared of with stuff like this is like, I totally get it. You should have due diligence when you're sponsoring something because your reputation's on the line. But the truth is, the people that are watching them should also do their due diligence. So if they lost money because of them, at the end of the day, the last filter is yourself. You know,
but these people get so brainwashed. Like, you know, these are like their heroes. You know, these are people they look up to so much. They're like, oh wow, if they did it. You know, think about like different people that you'd listen to. If they told you something, you probably wouldn't do due diligence. So, you know, when you're in that type of figure, you got to have a little bit more, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility.
A lot of responsibility. But what I'm thinking is a lot of times, and I can think of a lot of times this has happened, where people will sponsor someone and then all of a sudden they did something stupid. But like, you don't know that they did something stupid. Like, you don't know, you know, until you know. So it's like, how liable should they really be?
Allegedly, these influencers played a major role in the FTX disaster, who hyped the deceptive FTX platform for undisclosed payments. Now look, none of this is really surprising. We talked about this back in November, and it all feels inevitable. The whole reason FTX was so popular is because of the amount of money they dumped into these advertising campaigns. Everyone I know was offered one of these deals. Either way.
You know how much money they made in advertising?
I wonder. I'm sure he's probably going to say.
Okay.
It's pretty logical to see that without people willing to take the money and sell FTX, it just couldn't have hurt as many people. And already, we saw a similar class action lawsuit come out against arguably...
Yeah, so you did have a lawsuit. You were asking about it, Tom Brady didn't have a lawsuit.
Yeah, so it's a totally separate lawsuit, though.
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't hear much about it. How long ago did all these lawsuits happen? Is it really recent? Or
yeah, this is like within the last month.
Within the last month. So 2 months ago, nobody would have known this was happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think people would have started like speculating, but I think they were building the case at the time because like FTX had already crashed.
Is FTX like a platform, or is it actually like a type of coin?
No, so FTX is like Coinbase.
Oh, it's like Coinbase.
That's how crazy it is.
So you could trade shit on FTX.
They were as big as Coinbase.
And then what happened? They just stole everyone's money?
So basically what had happened, from what I understand, and I don't honestly know as much as I should, but I know the basic premise is let's say you wanted to buy a Bitcoin through FTX. Well, let's say you put $40,000 to the Bitcoin at the time.
All right.
They basically give you a Bitcoin in your account. But what they were doing wasn't giving people actual Bitcoin sometimes. They were actually just giving you, like, in your account, it looked like you had a Bitcoin, and then taking your money. So then when people sold, they were just cashing them out. So, like, it was like a Ponzi scheme, right? So, like, $100 went in, and if someone sold their Bitcoin, they'd be like, okay, screw it. I'll give them market value. I'll give them the $35,000.
Right.
They give them $35,000, but they have the difference of the 65. The problem is, as soon as people started losing faith, and they were all selling their cryptos, well, shit, there was no real crypto behind any of it. It was just like funds being put in, funds being put out.
The biggest promoters, Tom Brady, Larry David, Kevin O'Leary. And so this just seems like the next logical step targeted at smaller promoters.
So Kevin O'Leary was a big, that's the Shark Tank.
Yeah.
He's like the one in the middle that,
yeah.
Oh, wow. So Kevin O'Leary got big into that.
That's what's crazy is like a lot of the biggest people in the finance industry backed FTX. They didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Albeit financial education influencers in particular. So although these guys don't have as anything close to Tom Brady's popularity, the argument here is different. It's that people look to people like Stephan and Meet Kevin in a different way than they looked at Tom Brady. If Tom Brady promotes some penny stock, you'll think nothing of it. But Meet Kevin, Stephan, Andre Jick, Financial Jeremy, all they do is do finance all day long. They even have a podcast they called Millennial Money, which was sponsored by, you guessed it, FTX US, and is now deleted. And the point is, they position themselves as experts. And I think that's the real juice of this lawsuit, in contrast to, say, like the Tom Brady lawsuit. The only analogy I can think of is like if someone tried to sell you a pill that was going to help you lose weight, and the two people promoting it is Jack Black and Dr. Oz. Okay, let's say you take the pill and develop uncontrollable vomiting. Who would you actually be mad at? You know, you could say, well, Jack Black's more of a star. But ultimately, obviously, the answer would be Dr. Oz, because he's expected to know better and to...
Yeah, so that makes sense. So they're targeting the experts in the industry as opposed to just the stars that are just stars, you know? Because like these experts, that's what you do. You should know that stuff really
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Where the other people, but again, they could have all been tricked. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's-
100%.
I'm sure 100% these people. Like I know that some of them some of them a little bit. There's no way in hell they would ever promote something that they thought was even like a tiny.
It's not
little
worth that
shit.
liability.
No.
Yeah.
It's not worth liability. It's not worth the reputation.
Right,
Like,
right.
That's worth everything to them. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
do due diligence. And the reasonable assumption is that Jack Black couldn't look into it even if he tried, because he's not an expert. And so I think that component probably will make a massive difference. I'm certainly not saying everyone who promoted FTX who didn't know anything about finance should be let off the hook. I think it's a huge problem either way that non-experts can shill financial products.
You know how much money people lost collectively?
Billions of dollars.
Billions and billions.
It's the biggest. They say it's the biggest Ponzi scheme in the history of the world. It makes what's that really popular? That biggest Ponzi scheme prior to this, like it. It's Iman. What was it called? Emron.
Madoff?
Emron. Yeah. Bernie. Yeah.
Bernie Madoff?
Yeah, Bernie Madoff. Yeah.
Bernie Madoff?
Yeah. So that is like pennies compared to what this was.
Really?
Yeah. People say it's like 100 times that amount.
Because this isn't regulated. None of crypto is regulated by the government. Or
It was regulated to some degree, and that's how they got caught. It's because the government was like, "Hey, what's happening with all these funds? Like, you're moving it to offshore accounts. Like, there's billions of dollars missing. Like, what's going on?"
Really?
And so that's when they started cracking down.
I do remember seeing like in the last month or so some young kids like getting arrested for. Was that the people that started? Were they already in their 20s?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the one with the curly hair. Yeah. He was really young. Yep.
So he's the one that came up with this whole Ponzi scheme.
And so what's crazy about that guy, which I don't think they're going to go into this video because it was a little earlier on. So he put the reputation as the most generous billionaire. Like that's how he marketed himself. Gave away all of his money, donated something like, I think it was like $10 or $15 million to the Democratic Party. It was like super liberal.
The Democratic Party?
Yes.
Oh
Yes. He was like super like liberal and like would donate to charities and would wear flip-flops and would drive a Honda Civic.
Flip-flops? Why would he wear flip-flops?
Yeah, I know. Fucking
Crazy.
idiot. Fucking
Yeah,
idiot.
damn.
Drive a Honda Civic. But like at the end of the day, he was like stealing all these people's fucking money. It's crazy.
I always wonder, like, how do these people think they're gonna get away with it and not get caught? Like,
I know.
I mean, especially on that type of level, it's like impossible not to. They're like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna have the best life I could have for a certain amount of years. When I get caught, I'm fucked. I mean, like,
What's crazy is like when he was like confronted by all of it, his response was like, "Oh man, it must have been a mistake. Like I don't know, the money just went to that." Like he was just saying shit that was like so crazy. It was like,
I think these people think in their head that eventually they're gonna be able to make it to where they can make it legit. You know? Somehow there's gonna be a way to.
they go far. Like they think they're in the gray area, and then they're way past it. They're like,
there's no way back.
I'm just saying it's worse if they are experts. But to make my position even more explicit, I don't think influencers of any kind should be allowed to promote these investment products. I think there's a huge downside to it and very little upside. I think you oftentimes end up hurting people because it's impossible to give broad financial advice in a responsible manner to a massive audience you don't know. But on that note, you might say, well, hang on a minute, Stephen. I'm with you on not selling financial products, but they weren't selling that. They were selling FTX, right? Or FTX US. And this is where things get a little tricky because yes, there's some truth to the fact that FTX US was a platform, but on that platform, they were also selling financial products. You see, you could buy what was called a yield-bearing account, or you could put your money in it. It's where they offered you 8% a year. And this wasn't just FTX, this was FTX US. And that's a problem because, well, this type of account is probably an unregistered security. If American investors put money into this earn account, where you could earn 8% a year because of one of these influencers, they may have sold an unregistered security, which would be bad, not just for the person who put their money there, but also bad for the influencer. I mean, look, it's all bad. It's just legal jujitsu to kind of get to the obvious.
Legal jujitsu. Have you heard that before?
no, I've never heard that term.
Legal jujitsu. Damn, that's kind of cool. All right, so did these influencers actually use these accounts and like put, have their own Bitcoins and other crypto in it? Did they use it themselves, or they just promoted it without using it?
So everyone that I've heard said that they used the platform themselves. That's why they promoted it. They were like it was like the easiest thing to do because I put my crypto in there. This was my crypto trading platform. So like Kevin O'Leary specifically, I think he said that like man, I'd be making up an amount, but I know he had like millions of dollars on this platform.
Right.
And he's like, not only have I lost all my money, but now I have like my reputation in the shitter because this shit went bad.
So he lost all his money.
He went to court on that platform.
I'm saying, but so any amount of money you had in that platform, at one point it was worth zero.
Had you not sold at a certain particular time, right? Because it's like a Ponzi scheme. So at some point, you can still cash out. You can still cash out until you can't.
Right.
Well, I think actually now I read something. Kevin O'Leary cashed out a certain amount at a really convenient point in time, and I think that's why he's getting a lot more shit than a lot of other people.
He might have known something.
Yeah, he might have known something earlier than the public may have. And he cashed out, and he actually went to court and was like, I'm gonna take that money and like give it back to as many people as I can. And that's what he said, but like, I mean, he still did the action. I don't know.
Ultimately, this story is about people getting hurt, promoters getting paid, and now they're getting sued for it, to which I say, good. Although, not everyone believes this particular legal strategy is going to hold water. I asked Legal Eagle, a well-known lawyer on YouTube, what he thought, and he was doubtful about its chances.
And basically, the entire case rests on a part of the Florida law that the plaintiffs claim connects the endorsers to FTX. I'm very skeptical of this. The section in question extends liability to any director, officer, partner, or agent for the seller if they personally participated or aided in the making of a sale. And if you're on YouTube or if you're a celebrity endorser, you're not a director of the company, you're not an officer, you're not a partner, and you're not an agent. You're not able to act on behalf of the company. You're just basically contracted to make a statement. For most of them, it relies on a bare allegation that they were, quote, paid to endorse FTX. And then there is a subsequent allegation where it's so wishy-washy. It says, quote, it is hard to imagine that anyone who has done business with FTX, including paid endorsers, would not have personally witnessed one or more of the deficiencies identified by Mr. Ray. He's the guy who's in charge of the receivership of FTX in bankruptcy. And all FTX endorsers have extensive business dealings beyond FTX and surely would be able to identify business practices that are unusually problematic. Now, as a legal matter, I don't think that really changes anything. As a factual matter, it's just completely false that a celebrity endorser or a YouTuber would have any insight into the inner workings of FTX that the public does not have. That's just not the way it works. Though at the same time, I wouldn't want to be these YouTubers either, who are gonna have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to their lawyers to defend against
Thousands and thousands. That sounds cheap.
That's nothing. If these guys don't give a fuck about thousands and thousands, that's not what it's gonna cost.
It's gonna be hundreds of thousands or millions?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fucking, like...
I wonder if they would, like, at some point be like, all right, fine, here, let's settle and give something.
Yeah.
Instead. But, yeah, those lawyers, I mean, I don't know. It depends how frivolous the lawsuit looks to be.
Yeah. The one thing that I think he said that, like, I completely agree with, like, people are like, do your due diligence. But, like, on what? Like, this is a publicly traded company. I know what they know. Like, I can only see what I can see. But if they have offshore accounts, how will I know that, you know?
Yeah.
what is quite possibly a meritless lawsuit. I don't expect this particular lawsuit to go anywhere, but I think it is going to be a pain in the sides of many of these YouTubers.
Wow. So there's the official opinion from an expert. It'll probably cost the influencers a lot of money, but he's skeptical if it will hold up for the long run. Of course, we'll see how it plays out. But the last thing I wanted to do was not just ask a lawyer what they thought, but ask these influencers. Because look, whether you think this particular lawsuit is relevant, it changes nothing about the ethics of this situation. And I wanted to hear it straight from them. And most of them refused to comment for understandable reasons, but Meet Kevin decided to respond, and here's what he said. You're being sued along with several others for the promotion of FTX. Do you think you should be liable? What are your thoughts?
It's terrible. I feel so terrible for the people who lost money from FTX. I feel so, just the entire YouTube finance community has really gotten hit basically with egg on the face, so to speak, because of the association with somebody who ended up being a terrible fraud. And it's miserable. The way I compare it is I was a real estate broker for quite a while, still am a real estate broker, and oftentimes clients ask us for vendor recommendations. Hey, who's a good electrician? Who's a good plumber? And I've had this before where 98% of the time the electrician you recommend is great, and then one time something goes wrong, and that stuff happens. It turns into this situation where the person who's responsible is the person making the mistake. And I know it's terrible because it's like, hey, well, financial influence.
You know, I totally agree with me, Kevin, on this one. There's a big difference, though. His analogy is like dead on 100% perfect, except for one minor thing. And this is why, by the way, when people ask me to refer them an electrician or refer them a plumber or refer them anything, I just don't like to, because it could go great most of the time. That one time it goes bad, I look like an asshole, and it's just not worth it. So I purposely don't refer people, very rarely to people. But when I am referring people to, electricians to somebody, I'm not getting paid an endorsement fee. I'm doing it because I'm trying to help them for free.
Right.
What happened here is they got paid to do it. So that's the only difference. But besides that, it's exactly the same.
Right.
So I don't know, like, by getting paid to do it, if there's much of a difference or not. I don't know if that really matters a whole lot, but that is the one big difference.
Right.
Influencers, how come they didn't know? We didn't have access to financials at FTX. We had hired individual representatives like agencies who do this sort of stuff, and they tell us they do all the vetting for us. This is why we hire people to help us, and so we don't have a look into the systems of what's really going on behind the scenes. And I think that's the same thing that happened to people like Shaq or Matt Damon or whomever else has been caught up in this. But I think the worst case scenario out of all of this is the individuals who don't have access to their deposits.
But do you think you should, specifically you or me, Graham or anybody else like who promoted it? I think the difference is between you and Tom Brady is people kind of expect you guys to know. Do you think you should be, do you think you should be giving recommendations if you can't do the proper due diligence because, as you said, you don't have access to these financials? And then B, do you think that given that you guys profited, I'm guessing somewhere in the realm of $1 million plus from these FTX things, do you think that you should give back all of that money?
So first, my expectation is my profit from FTX, just to be as transparent as possible, is probably somewhere around 225K. It's supposed to be closer to 300, but they never paid me the last payment. So I'm probably somewhere right around 220. I need to fact check that, but we're close somewhere around that. Ultimately, I agree with you. I think that there needs to be there needs to be a lot more diligence in when sponsorships are made with creators.
Yeah, because you guys are dealing with finances. This isn't like...
What's really cool? I mean, so this guy asked all these people to get on the phone and talk to him and whatever else. Meet Kevin's the only one that did it.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool. Like, I give him a lot of respect for that because, and he's answering everything, truthfully.
Right.
He's answering it.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're getting sued for $1 billion, you would think that they made crazy amount of money on it. He's like, I made $220,000 on it. Like,
right.
I'm sure if it came down to it, he'd be like, yeah, I feel bad. I'd give the 220 back, no problem. But but that's crazy. He even got screwed. He was supposed to get 300. He didn't even get all the money he was supposed to get. So,
one thing that he keeps saying is like, should finance people be able to give financial advice because they can't do the proper due diligence? I don't know. I think that's such a slippery slope. Like, as soon as you start saying, hey, you can't do this.
Then everyone can't do anything. It's
Exactly.
like, then what can you do?
The lawyer...
Could a sports athlete like endorse Powerade or Gatorade because that's what they do? That's what they drink. It's
Right.
like, what happens if one of those ends up,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Like the lawyer that just gave advice, right? Let's say Kevin's lawyer used the exact same thing that lawyer just said. He said, no, this lawyer told me that this was going to work. He said that there's a big case here. Should I be able to sue the lawyer because the shit was wrong? It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you can't.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. I hate that. That's what's gone wrong with this country, where you could just sue anyone for anything and think that like you're owed all this shit. That's what's making the country go down. That's why a lot of states people don't want to live in. I'm not going to mention those states, but it's definitely not Atlanta. Georgia's definitely the state that's good.
Like, this isn't a NordVPN ad where if things go wrong, something happens. This is like, if something goes wrong, people's entire livelihoods are at stake. And for better or for worse, you guys are seen as the experts. And so you guys are held to that expert standard. It's like if a doctor recommended a pill that doesn't work and gives you gives you cancer or something.
The suppose it's also relevant to what people individually say, right? Because individually, I've always said, look, crypto is extremely speculative and that it should represent a tiny portion of your portfolio, if anything at all. On top of that, it's also incumbent upon the individual to take some responsibility that we know not your keys, not your crypto. That's been made abundantly clear. Even with these bank failures, I believe that ultimately depositors deserve some form of a haircut because ultimately they choose. Now, if I say, hey, go to Silicon Valley Bank and get a loan, and you're like, yeah, I get a loan here, I get all these benefits, ultimately you take that risk. So it is incumbent upon the individual to take responsibility as well. Yes, a doctor can refer you, hey, maybe this medicine will work.
But the individuals aren't the experts. That's the whole problem, is they rely on experts to help them make this decision. They don't have the...
So, like, I think that argument is really bullshit. Like, the difference between a doctor and who, like, these finance YouTubers are, is the doctor, one, is getting... It's a trade of something, right? Like, someone is paying him to do his job in the sense of directly, right? Like, you pay for a doctor's visit because they've gone to medical school for 10 years. These influencers, the only reason why they're trustworthy is because, one, they built an audience, and two, they've done what they've done for themselves, and they tell the audience what they've done. Now, they're not claiming that they can make anyone a millionaire and that what they're going to tell you is exactly right. 99% of the videos that I watch from these people, they always say, hey, this isn't financial advice. This is just what I'm doing in the markets. That's what they'll say. Right? It's like that's not the same thing at all.
No, it's definitely different. Like I said, it's that slippery slope. Like, you ultimately got to know what you're doing and be comfortable with potential loss or potential gain.
Right.
The luxury of spending all day looking at finance and stuff like this, so they rely on people to make their decisions for better or worse. And then when things go wrong, ultimately people are going to look to the experts in the room and say, hey, what happened? And if the answer is, well, we just didn't do enough due diligence, sorry, that's kind of a problem.
So you know what's cool about me, Kevin, talking about this? And he's been talking for a while and answering all kinds of questions. And I honestly, like, the questions are getting, like, worse, like, meaning, like,
more aggressive.
He's aggressive. Like, he's not asking anymore. He's like, all right, you're wrong because you're doing this, right? And so I'm watching me, Kevin, talk and answer and how he's saying everything, and he literally just feels so like, look, I'm telling you everything because I don't think I did anything wrong. Like, and you could see that, like, he honestly believes that whatever he did is, like, what he was supposed to do and nothing wrong. So that's why he's talking,
Yeah.
So I think that's where their questions about, like, giving back all the money come from. Have you spoken to anybody about just giving back the money to the people affected?
Once all the cards are settled, or all the dust is settled, so to speak, and everybody gets whatever money is left back, whatever deposits are left, I'm a big fan of contributing to some sort of recovery fund when it's all over, not because I feel responsible. I do not feel responsible, but because I feel sorry for people who, quite frankly, lost money because they either didn't listen to the advice of not your keys, not your crypto, or they put too much of their own portfolio on. If I go onto a gambling website because somebody says, hey, go gamble here, you'll make a lot of money, and I lose money, that's on me. And I want to be clear too, I invested in BlockFi thinking this was going to be a great investment. I put $420,000 into BlockFi. I lost every dime of that because the company went bankrupt. Now, did I blame Anthony Pompliano for making the recommendation or suggesting, hey, you could invest with my fund into BlockFi? Absolutely not, because I'm a big boy and I take personal responsibility. So I want to be very clear, just because I suggest that, hey, there should be, and I'm happy to work with this, some form of, like, basically a charity. Let's be clear, that's what it is. It's not taking responsibility, because ultimately, I don't think...
anyone with any common sense, like, I don't know how much common sense judges and all this stuff have these days, because, like, some of this shit's crazy. But anyone that has any common sense that's listening to what me, Kevin's saying, I mean, he's right. Like, ultimately, he's right. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
And actually, if you think about the world that the argument is kind of coming off of, okay, you can't give financial advice unless it's right. That's pretty much what they're saying. How the fuck is that possible?
I mean, if everything he said was right, he would charge $1 billion.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm going to tell you my thoughts. Take what you think makes sense,
Right.
I'm not going to always be right. I lost money myself on a bunch of shit. But, it's just crazy. It's crazy, this world.
any influencer has to take responsibility for what somebody does with product advice. That responsibility should only arise if somebody actually hires somebody, like retaining an attorney, hiring a doctor for their own personal situation, or hiring a personal financial advisor. Otherwise, from there, it's a lesson to the whole community. We've got to be more careful with sponsors, and the viewers have to be, diligent about the own.
That's another really good point, that to talk about. He's saying, look, the people that are listening to my advice, they're not paying me for the advice. It's free advice.
Right.
Like, if I was their personal financial advisor and they came to me and I charged them all this money for shit advice or for like bad advice, that's still probably not something to sue me over, but at least there's a better case.
Right.
Like, I didn't get paid to give this advice to anyone. Like, they just took it. They didn't have to use it.
Right.
I mean, the more you say, it's like, how could anyone possibly win?
Right.
Unless they're sued in not a state that's like Georgia.
Right.
If they get sued in
they said
California,
Florida, which seems like that'll be all right.
Yeah, Florida should be okay.
Yeah.
Their own decisions.
Well, there you go, guys. Those are the thoughts of Meet Kevin. And I want to thank him for coming on. And maybe one day he'll start that charity he's talking about. Maybe not. But until then, I just want you to understand something the next time you're thinking of trusting a financial influencer. These promotional deals, how they work with things like FTX, is that there's a code associated with it that tracks sales. For example, you might have heard of somebody saying, hey, use code CoffeeZilla, or, they have some link, right? So FTX can see how many people signed up with Kevin's link or Shaq's link. And you know who takes responsibility when it's time to make money? The influencer. They take responsibility for you joining their platform. That's how FTX grew. They paid all these people who wanted to be responsible for bringing you in. But you know what happens when things go wrong? Suddenly, they're not responsible. You did it. It's on you. Isn't that a convenient switch up of who brought you in? At first it was them, and then you brought yourself in. You got to take.
The matter is, there's a good argument either way. But common sense, when it all comes down to it, if you really think about it, it's like, do what you want to do. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, he can make a good argument that it was their fault, and he can make a good argument that it wasn't their fault. But ultimately, when you argue back and forth, I mean, I think common sense is going to really tell you what the case is.
Take responsibility for your own actions. And I just don't think this is really working for people anymore. I think it really just benefits the influencers and the financial companies, but hardly anyone else. It's bad for regular people. And I think there just really needs to be new rules in place about financial experts in the modern era. But hey, that's just my opinion. Hashtag not financial advice.
I feel like these influencers are probably one of the biggest victims of this whole thing, because their reputation is being like dragged for something that I don't believe they should be. I don't know. I think that's the money is scary because $1 billion can wipe anyone out, but I don't think it's gonna happen. But I think the implications of like people saying that, hey, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, or whatever they're saying could lose you a lot of money. That's worse for their career. That's good. That's scarier.
Yeah. Yeah, so. But I think ultimately all the people that really follow him and understand the situation, it's going to still follow him, and they'll be fine. Yeah. And actually, a lot of times when there's bad publicity, it even makes those people grow bigger. Right. So it potentially could help them.
Yeah.
Who knows yet?
I hope so.
It's too soon to find out. But you're saying how it could hurt them, but it technically could hurt them or it could help them depending on how things go.
Right. All right, guys. If you guys like this video and want to see more like it, subscribe, like, comment down below, and we'll see you on the next video.
And make sure if you didn't watch my Meet Kevin video when I went to go see him, check this up right over here, and you're going to see how I spent the day with him, flew on his private jet, and had some awesome conversations.